I think it's a good time to get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our webinar today. We are going to dive into 10 organic tactics that will carry your law firm to a successful end game. My name is Joanna Brooks, and I'm the Director of Client Experience at Market My Market. I'm responsible for managing and nurturing our client partnerships. We also have James Morehouse on the webinar. Introduce yourself, James.
Thank you, Joanne. This is James Morehouse, Client Success Manager at Market My Market. I'm happy to have recently joined them a few weeks ago. I come from a couple of decades worth of background in the legal marketing side of things. Started back in print marketing, if some of you guys out there on the webinar know what that was. And definitely have come full circle into the digital age. So definitely happy to bring a lot of good information to you during this webinar.
Yep, and then we also have Ryan Klein on the webinar today. Say hey, Ryan.
Hey, everyone. Again, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. My name is Ryan Klein, one of the managing partners here at Market My Market. Been doing legal marketing for about a decade, really primarily a focus on the organic side of things. So I really want to preface this whole webinar by saying paid isn't bad by any means, but we really want to reflect on all the great things you can do organically to really build that foundation and not necessarily rely on third parties all the time for leads. So really excited about this one.
Same here. All right. So as the dust from the first wave of the pandemic begins to settle and the economy slowly begins to reopen and then close again in other areas, how can law firms use this time to become a better business? This webinar is going to cover tips on where to focus your efforts to make sure that you cement yourself in a strong position as we navigate the path forward. So discussion topics will include engaging with your audience in new ways, the intake process, utilizing technology, getting involved in social media, organic positioning beyond your website, improving your content strategy, taking your blog seriously, the state of links and building authority, structured data, voice search, and then we'll save time at the end of the webinar to answer any questions that you might have. And if we don't get anything addressed, if we don't get everything addressed during the webinar, we can circle back via email. So let's get started. All right. So marketing has changed as a result of the pandemic, and your efforts need to be considerate of this new environment that we're operating in. So consumers' concerns have changed, their behaviors have changed, and this needs to be addressed by finding new ways to engage with your audience. So a few developments to consider include the following. Now is an opportune time to produce content for today and tomorrow. So what we mean by this is by developing a strategy for content you can write right now that addresses pressing questions that people are searching for right now. And then also developing a strategy for when people are going to be searching for you more actively when the COVID pandemic actually does die down. Another development to consider is that although social media ads are cheaper right now, and you might think it's a good source for lead generation, we are actually finding that user intent is actually low for paid social media ads. So it's better actually for strengthening your authority and branding in the community rather than lead generation. And what we have found is good for lead generation right now from a paid standpoint is Google ads. Google ads are worth exploring if you want to do them right now. If your practice area is viable, that would be a good course of action to follow.
Yeah, and I think for Google ads, it's worth mentioning that it really does depend on the practice area. It depends on the geography because you're going to have some places where people really pull out of their marketing and you might be able to come in and get a lot of clicks that used to be more expensive. And then in some places, you have a lot of people that have the same idea at the same time. And you actually have an anomaly where today, you might be in an area where it's more expensive just because you have a lot of competition that happen to hop on it at the same time. So really case by case, but
yeah, you do get results from the Google ads, but like Ryan said, at the same time, everyone's jumping on the bandwagon and doing the same thing. So it could add up over time, but it's definitely different stuff that you could explore.
Yeah. So the name of the game here is really just being forward thinking and being proactive. Okay, move on to the next slide. All right, James, take it away.
All right, how's everyone doing on the webinar? We're going to be talking about intake, the intake process. It's very important to optimize your intake process to deliver a better client experience, improve efficiency, and convert more leads into cases. So what are we talking about here? What are the benefits of intake? We definitely want to have a proper info structure and intake process happening before we do any heavy marketing. So leading up to that, these are the different questions that we wanted to portray. Do you have a dedicated phone number, specific marketing campaigns, call tracking system that monitors and records these incoming calls? This is very important. A lot of my clients in the past, when I was in-house, use CallRail. There's other systems and other companies out there that if you have questions, we can definitely refer you to. And also, is your staff trained to ask how a caller found about the firm? I don't know how many times I could tell you this working in-house for a couple of decades. The attorney would tell me, oh, the phone is ringing. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what they're doing, but it's ringing. So my marketing must be working. And I told him, I think your marketing might be working, one or two things, but you're doing 5 to 10 things. So let's try to figure that out. Let's try to find out where they came from. And is your staff familiar with the marketing that is being used to drive these calls? And then what is your staff doing? How are they trained to ask what the problem is that prompted the call in the first place? So these are very important questions. And then this leads into our other questions. Is the staff giving the caller a choice between 2 different appointment time options? This has completely changed now because of COVID. So now we're talking about conference calls, video calls, not exactly in-house, in person, in the office, so to speak, type of business. And then do you have an answering service? I love this. Do you have an answering service that takes calls after hours, or is there a dedicated on-call employee? So Ryan, what do you think about this? Because, offices are open 8 to 5, 9 to 5, but we're marketing 24/7. What's your take on this, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're open 9 to 5 and you're presenting that on your website, on Google, on directories, you're essentially telling people that you're open for 1/3 of any given weekday. And then if you factor in Saturdays and Sundays, we're talking about being open a quarter of the entire week. So, from this standpoint, having some sort of outdoor hours, whether it be a call service, whether it be chat, something that presents you that way is just extremely important because of how many times people reach out to law firms during, after hours and all that. And actually also on Google My Business, there is ways to select, who's open 24 hours, who's open right now. And sometimes even if you are prominently on the maps for the 9 to 5, the second it's 5:01, you're off the map, someone else is. So it's a really great opportunity right there.
Exactly. So what Ryan is telling us that your office is only open 25 to 33% of the time, yet you're marketing 24/7. So what are you going to do about it? We definitely got to get a game plan in play to be able to answer all these calls and or be able to get back to them promptly. And also, what is your follow-up process for after calls, missed calls, callers who don't make appointments on their first call? We want to be able to get to their information, get back to them as soon as possible, and have you engaged in role play with your staff. I love this. I love this. I love this a lot. I can tell you, I did this so many different times in-house, and then from a consultant standpoint, I want to find out. I will get you right now. You guys should call your law firm right now, get them on the phone, see what they say, see how they direct you. How long are you on hold? I hope you're not on hold for very long. Are you getting to the proper person? And they're going to call right now, and they're going to say, what? They're on a webinar right now. They can't take your call. Well, unfortunately, you could hang up and come back to our webinar because that's a lead, but definitely come back to our webinar. Don't leave just yet. So anyway, we want to engage in role play. We want to act as a client, just call in, seek legal representation, figure out how you interact. This is very important from a marketing standpoint, and the benefits of intake, especially in 2020, and I think our team will agree, are definitely the most important they've ever been.
Yeah, and that's a great point too, because how many times do we call law firms and we kind of have a scheduled appointment or a consultation, they pick up the phone, they kind of don't really sound like they want to be there, talking to us like, marketers, like they're being solicited. But the thing is they're kind of answering the phone and they're talking that way to potential clients. They're talking like that way to current clients. It's just really important to know what's going on with your intake and maybe even having some sort of script in play, because we're leading with this intake process, because before we even move into how you generate more leads, it's just so important to be able to convert the leads that you're already getting.
Exactly. And the script is important. You kind of want to not read the script word for word, so to speak, but you definitely want to make it a little bit more personal. You want to be able to be a resource for them, be able to, answer all their questions. So a script and all these questions are definitely important.
Absolutely. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. Utilizing technology.
The intake process, didn't we just talk about this? But now we're utilizing technology as well. You guys are just killing me today, but this is great information. I hope you all enjoy it as well. Utilizing technology. Technology has a positive impact on the way lawyers work and the services and experiences they deliver. When I started in 1999, this was not around. It was around, but not as much. So now we're talking about the intake process and technology. The following should happen whenever someone expects to contact a firm. There's no way from a marketing standpoint that that call is going to ring several times and nobody answers. If that happened when I worked in-house, I go find the person who was supposed to take that call and say, hey, what, you just wasted my marketing dollars. Let's figure out a game plan. You know, I said worst case scenario, new client calls in, you send that call to me. Of course, I don't want to take that call. I want somebody else to take that call because that's not my expertise. But the whole idea is that you don't want it to ring more than a few times and no more than several times. So what we want to do here is we want to have a dedicated person, intake person, attorney, whoever it might be, paralegal, legal assistant, is going to call at their desk 3 times. And then after that, it's going to ring over to another person's desk 3 times. And then if you kind of want to go crazy, then you can kind of have to go to another person's desk 3 times. But ideally, if they leave a voicemail, you want to get back to them. And 9 out of 10 calls, I want my intake person to answer that call, even if they just speak to them for a couple minutes and tell them to call them back. So we want to be able to get it directly to whoever's responsibly, hopefully the attorney most of the time. And then the correspondences, the intakes, certainly somebody will return their call. I don't know how many times I've heard this. Communication is key in law firms. And I got clients calling in, and past clients and current clients, they would call in when I worked in-house and they would say, hey, the attorney didn't return my phone call. So we want to make sure that you're getting back to them as soon as possible. And then communicating via chat and after hours. Live chat is very big. After hours is very big. We kind of touched on that in the previous slide regarding answering service. And then we get into nurturing campaigns and the benefit of nurturing campaigns, converting more clients with the email campaign or remarketing. We want to get in front of their face as much as possible. And I know Ryan would love to chirp in here on nurturing campaigns.
I got a little bit of chirping here, but I think that a lot of law firms are under the impression if they have a potential client call, they're ready to make a move. They're great salespeople. They're great closers. There's no one on our team that can't get someone to sign up for their services right there on the spot. And it's just not the case. When we talk about, wills, trust, probate, some things like that, where there's some decision to be made and they're not really ready to pull the trigger on the spot, some sort of nurture campaign is great. Doing the email drip where they get, 3, 4, or 5 emails following up over time. Criminal defense, they might not make a decision on the spot. They might get, quotes for the fees associated with it, and they require some emails. And then even PI, personal injury, there are a lot of times where it's like, well, why would they go somewhere else? We have the accolades, we have the settlements, we all have the same, contingency. And the fact is, sometimes people talk to other people there too, making a decision. So it's important to follow up, whether it be remarketing or an email campaign, but nurturing at all times is definitely going to benefit conversions.
Yeah. And I'll also say too, it's going to help push people down the decision-making process because you're able to feed them with information that's going to make them trust you more. So like the first email they'll get is, oh, hey, you want a free consultation. The second one would be, oh, do you know that we have X years of experience and, X, Y, Z. The next one, you could share some case results. So that's like what's really powerful about nurture campaigns and converting more cases via them.
Definitely, yeah, and kind of pigging on what Joanna said, if your law firm has a couple of different awards, I would market your law firm as an award-winning law firm. And if you have 5 awards, 1 award, 10 awards, I would market that as an award-winning law firm. If you have 1 office or 2 employees, I would market yourself as a team, not necessarily the solo attorney. Because from a marketing standpoint, you want to always make yourself appear bigger than you actually are. And that leads us into the law practice management software, automating your firm and getting more done in less time. So how are you doing this? Do you have a customer relationship management software system? Do you have a case management software system? How are you going to be able to track all this and I was trying to figure out what's going on because I got so many different things going on from a marketing standpoint. How are you tracking all this? How are you kind of putting it all into one database so you can move forward and more efficiently?
That's right. And then a simple Google search will reveal a multitude of options that you could explore for law practice management software.
Correct.
Right, getting involved in social media. So social media is a highly effective way to engage your audience and get more clients. So we spoke earlier about the fact that we're not really recommending paid social media for lead generation, but from an organic standpoint, social media is huge right now, especially during the COVID pandemic. People have a lot more time on their hands, so they're online more, they're on social media more. So we need to leverage this opportunity. by maximizing your time with video content. So you can do this on Instagram. One of the great ways to do that is Instagram TV. Instagram TV allows you to share much longer video than you would if you were to share it on as a normal Instagram post or sharing a story or whatnot. You get to share minutes long worth of content with your audience. And it's a great opportunity to share content that's informational and educational. So, you know, maybe doing it from an FAQ standpoint would be a great way to provide great content to your audience and keep yourself top of mind and show that you're still an authority on the subject that you're practicing.
Yeah, really the name of the game right now is answering people's questions, and people certainly have lots of questions. So, you know, going back to video content, I'm really seeing the rise in lawyers and law firms really engaging in video, and it doesn't have to be overly complicated. You don't need to get like a production company. You don't have to set up your own studio. You know, a lot of smartphones are sophisticated enough to create great videos with little post-production, and you can post it on a YouTube channel, which to this day still is the second most utilized search engine, embedding on your website, and then sharing on social media and answering questions, 1.5, 2 minutes, nothing fancy. If you want to get fancy, you know, throw a green screen and have, you know, being Maui while you're while you're doing a video, you know, whatever you want to do. But I don't think that consumers are really looking for much. They're just looking at you. They're looking for you to be the authority and have the answers. And that really moves on to creating a community. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people in your community look for lawyers and law firms to be an authority, to really have something to say about what's going on in their community. So utilizing social media, kind of answering questions using video, and using any other medium to really get, you know, your information across is a great opportunity to position yourself in your community.
Definitely. On that social media aspect, what we're trying to tell everybody on the webinar is that something is better than nothing. Some video is better than doing nothing at all. Some sort of advertising, some sort of posting, some sort of something is better than nothing.
Yeah, especially because the time is ripe right now, especially for certain lawyers, like divorce lawyers and estate planning and so on and so forth. You know, you want to make sure that you're leveraging this time, you know, capitalizing on it, so to speak.
People are home, so I got to jump on it.
All right, Ryan's favorite. We're gonna take a deep dive.
My livelihood, SEO defines me. So if we're talking about organic, of course, the basis of that is always going to be SEO, search engine optimization. In the preceding slides, we're going to learn more about content and links and other things that you can do to enhance your SEO. But to start, you know, we can kind of talk about where we're at SEO-wise. So if anyone's really been doing SEO for the past decade, I guess like I have, when I got to see it kind of from an inflection point where spammy things stopped working and exploits. You know, I was able to see it when keyword stuffing used to work on websites. So kind of just to give a little bit of a background how much it's evolved. Websites used to rank really well for their respective keywords by just stuffing keywords into their website. And what I mean by that is every other word or phrase or key phrase being, you know, personal injury lawyer or criminal defense lawyer. Like if you need a criminal defense lawyer, our criminal defense lawyers can help with your issue. And, you know, it got, you know, a little bit convoluted, and it certainly didn't help with the user experience. And so Google started to ding that, because Google's all about, or they purported to be all about user experience. So when keywords obviously didn't read well, people went on to actually take all those keywords, put them to the bottom of the page. And keyword cloaking was that at the bottom of every page, there'd actually be like a big blank spot. And you'd be like, oh, why does it kind of just end there? And there's just a big, you know, space here all of a sudden, and actually highlight it, and you'd have all the keywords there because all the keywords were the same color as the background. So obviously that stopped working after a while. And then getting links, which anyone listening that participates in some form of SEO knows how important links are as far as building authority. Used to be a lot easier back then. Didn't have to come from legal resources. You could buy them from foreign countries. You can buy them from websites that were just very obviously just external linking everywhere. And in some cases, you could even get links from pornography websites and gambling websites, which obviously we know doesn't work nowadays, but it did for some time. And I think that the reason that I'm really prefacing everything with SEO and how it's come a long way and it's more difficult than it used to be is that there's technically a bigger barrier to entry for SEO, but that kind of, you know, kind of weeds out people from really actively doing it and gives a great opportunity for people that know the value, which there is value considering over 50% of people searching for legal services use Google specifically. So while the barrier entry and doing it correctly is a little bit more difficult, the rewards of proactively doing it are still absolutely there. And that's why we're going to be going over the rest of this now.
Yeah, about a dozen years ago, that keyword stuffing, you can kind of get away with it. And now times have changed. Google's got smarter. So we're here to show you how to get around this now.
Very good. Improving your content strategy. So content is huge. It's a huge part of SEO and making sure that you're going to show up at the top of search results. And there's different types of content that you can write in order to fulfill this need. So we have practice area pages. They can be broad and they can be granular. So these are pages that basically just reflect the service areas that you practice. So that's something like West Palm Beach DUI lawyer. You want to have a page for that so that you can show up at the top of search results for West Palm Beach DUI lawyer. So it's a dedicated geographical page. Sometimes you can have that. We're going to talk about that later on. But for the practice area, you can also go granular. And that would be something like second DUI lawyer. So that's going even more granular and allowing you to show up for that type of search results. There's lots of keyword opportunities with practice area pages. Then there's case results pages. These help people qualify you to their scenario by allowing you to show how the results that you provided to someone. So that is really great because it helps build trust and authority. It helps people feel more confident that you'll be able to get the same type of results for them. So those are two huge types of content that you'd want to consider. And then, as I mentioned, James will go through geographic and articles.
Definitely. So we're talking about geo pages, geographical area around your office. Most law firms service a particular area, so it's appropriate that they provide geo pages for each city or town that would be within their radius. And now times have changed, so what's the benefit of this? Usually I would say, let's try to go around 10, 20 miles around your office. If you want to set up another virtual office, or if you're big enough to actually set up another in-person office, then we can go out 50 miles, a little bit further out. But now, because of COVID, the benefit is that anybody could pretty much service the whole entire state, especially if you're in California where I am. I say an attorney, well, you're doing video calls, you can service other areas. You don't necessarily have to stay in your county unless you particularly wanted to do, but we could definitely expand your marketing. There's definitely some more benefits about that. And then it drops us into articles, more specific than a practice area page, but less casual than a blog. Much more detailed than any other type of content. So we're talking about newsworthy ties into your practice area, news, anything news related that kind of ties into what you're doing from a practice for your law firm. How can this go? How could this help your law firm? This is mainly just branding your law firm. It's being able to do all the other stuff and be able to kind of get that particular article, get that particular page, get that practice area all in a particular place so you can actually brand and identify and people out there can find you.
Yeah, I love what you said about geo pages. We really kind of almost obsess about it, but it's exactly what you're saying with the pandemic going on, people not necessarily going in for in-person consultations, a lot of law firms setting up video consults. I mean, frankly, you can really just have geo pages or position your law firm to have a presence statewide now, because it used to be, of course, people don't necessarily want to travel 100 miles to your office, even if they read the reviews and you're an obvious pick. That's just how consumers are. But if you're a law firm down in Miami, you can have a Tallahassee page, because what's the difference? You're in Texas, you're in Houston, El Paso. I mean, as long as you're able to practice in the state at this point with what's going on, I don't see any reason why you couldn't have a geo page for pretty much every metropolitan area.
And that's going to help your overall marketing. It's definitely going to help a lot of the branding of your firm, and a great time to do it.
Yeah, and the angle that we approach it for, if you're looking at a statewide strategy, it's areas we serve. So that's the way that you want to look at it. You serve all of these areas within the states, and you would, with the content strategy, you would decide, which of these areas, which of these regions within your state do you want to get more traffic for, and then you'd go ahead and you develop geo pages for those areas.
Yeah, there are areas you serve. You can say we can offer a video consultation for anyone in these areas. And then if you get a lot of traffic and you optimize it well, and then things go back to, I guess what you could say, normal, then you can get a virtual office at that point and then actually have a physical presence. So definitely a worthwhile strategy. Definitely encourage it.
Yeah, definitely. And you just grew your law firm just by doing that strategy that Ryan just spoke about.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So we're on to my tirade here, about taking your blogging seriously. So I'm going to dedicate some time talking about blogging because its potential is oftentimes kind of overlooked. It's not really utilized the way that I guess that we would encourage it, and it really can set up your law firm to get tons and tons of organic traffic. Sometimes it's going to be people coming in informational, that's fine. Sometimes they'll earn you backlinks naturally, which is fantastic. But sometimes you're just going to hit a home run and find something very niche, and then before you know it, you're going to get a lot of very specific kinds of inquiries with a high level of intent. So the two main ones I'll kind of cover right here on this slide here are really focusing on long-tailed answer blogs. So we were talking about content on the other slide, talking about some pages that, geo pages and your articles and your practice areas. Those are going to be kind of your short-tailed keywords. Those are going to be the ones where people simply search, lawyer, your practice area, geo, and not really too many other keywords. Your blog is opportunity for people that are going to search longer. Why do I need a lawyer? How do I get the best lawyer for my case? When is the best time to retain a lawyer? So you're going to be able to really cover all these kinds of topics through your blog, and we definitely encourage this. And this is going to be not only a way to keep your website fresh, which is very important, but it's just going to increase your visibility dramatically for the questions that people very obviously search for. So you can see one example here. What is the best way to get my record sealed? So I think on some other slides, we'll go over some of the ways that you can get the topics, but just keep this in mind that your blog is really your long-tailed keyword generator, essentially. And on another form, this newsworthy blogs, I think that a lot of law firms and some agencies in the past, maybe not as much anymore, are kind of notorious for kind of regurgitating the news. So you'll see a lot of blogs where it's, personal injury firm, and it's like, 2 were injured in a car accident, criminal defense, the celebrity got a DUI. It's like, that's nice, but there's almost going to be zero intent. It's going to already have been written by dozens of other law firms and the news, so you don't necessarily want to compete with news websites. And it's just really been done for a long time, and it's not going to result in the kind of traffic you're looking for. So when it comes to talking about anything newsworthy, we do recommend some things that you can really blog about, and potentially some of these are press releases too. So, new hires you're excited about, community events, so any sort of involvement. Whenever you did a sponsorship, if anyone on your team earned a prestigious award, any recognitions, if anyone on your team did kind of a notable speaking engagement or got something published that was of any sort of notoriety, and then any other topics you think is really relatable. So, because the blog is still good, it's great for the long tail, but it's great to kind of relate and know what kind of separates your law firm from others. So moving into it, so we're going to talk about the topics. So I know there are a lot of situations where we talk with law firms and they're just like, well, we're rewriting the news simply because I don't really know what to write about. And really, there are quite a few topics you can focus on. And if you really follow these guidelines, you're going to have more than enough blogs on a monthly basis to really just build up your website from a content standpoint. So I did mention rewriting the local news. That's fine, but you can see here that I have 6 points and I had several points before. So this is one of 8 suggestions that we have. So writing about the local news really would just suggest that being a very small portion of your blogging strategy. If you want to know some other things that people might search, we do utilize Google News quite a bit and kind of qualify it by news that came out in the past week or the past month. And it's not so much the news or people getting in car accidents or people getting arrested for various crimes. It is more so about changes to law, changes to legislation, things that people will search when laws change. So for example, we worked with a law firm when COVID-19 really started to snowball in their area. We started writing a lot of blogs about their curfew that changed. And that just got tons and tons of traffic. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's intent. It's like, maybe someone was arrested for curfew, probably not. But other places link to that because they see it as an authority. And before you know it, you're naturally building authority from your blog.
Yeah, and also, Ryan, it also kind of ties back into what we were saying earlier about writing content for now, addressing pressing topics right now. So if there's changes in the laws, for example, right now amid COVID, certain states are allowing virtual witnesses. And so that's a way that people are circumventing the barriers that COVID brings. That would be a great blog to write about and to show people that, hey, we still can help you even though XYZ is going on.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people are constantly searching, am I still going to court for this given legal issue? Is it, when is it going to happen? So these are just really timely things. And the blog can be fantastic for what you're saying, what's happening now. And it can also answer questions that people may search months out or even years. And then finding those topics or going on to websites where people frequent to look for assistance with their legal services or their legal questions. Avo is very popular as far as doing that. Lawyers.com, I believe, has some sort of a message board or a forum. And then a lot of people do it on Reddit. They'll ask questions, and I don't think everyone has a legal degree on there, but they can certainly push people along in the right direction. It can end up being great topics to actually write upon. Suggestive search topics are fantastic. We really like the website Answer the Public. There's another one called Uber Suggest, and it basically aggregates suggestive search on Google. So if you've ever gone to a Google search bar and you start typing a topic and then it kind of starts to autofill it, that's based off of trends and how people are really searching for those topics. So these resources will actually kind of aggregate that and present it to you so you can kind of see all the topics from suggestive search a little bit easier. Social media certainly is a great platform for people to ask questions. So Facebook and Twitter, people certainly ask a lot of questions, communities there, because people are on social media more than ever, like we mentioned, and people look for their circles and their groups to maybe assist them with kind of finding a resolution for their legal issue too. So you can search by hashtags on there. And then as far as again, retrospective, just think about all the questions any potential clients ever asked you. They come into your office, as a potential client, as a current client, people ask questions all the time. It's a good opportunity to take note and kind of formulate all those things into topics. Could be good for your blog, could be good for your FAQ.
Yeah, definitely. From a blog standpoint, you just want to be engaged as much as possible. And it's just adding extra exposure because like Ryan mentioned, they're just going to link somewhere else to your website and find something else about your firm that they didn't know, all based on the blog and a little bit of information that you provided. And also I would open it up to your clientele. Say, what do you want us to talk about? How can we better inform you? Do a survey, do something like that and see what they say.
All good points.
Yeah, and I don't know if you mentioned this, Ryan, did we mention that for some lawyers, their blog is what drives like a good chunk of their traffic, of their organic traffic?
I didn't mention that, and that is certainly the case. Some clients of ours, actually about 80% of their traffic, organic traffic, does come from the blog. And I want to reiterate it. It doesn't mean 80% of that are people that are willing to contact them, or they're going to be leads, but a lot of them can be, and a lot of them result in backlinks. And just a sound blogging strategy that's done correctly can result in a lot of benefits. And as I said during a practice run, your blog is beautiful, and it's a great opportunity to treat it so. It's a wonderful opportunity. It shouldn't be overlooked.
Might not even be called a blog. It might be called news or press release or past archive information, but you have the content there to create the blog, and or it's just called something else.
Yeah.
So still continuing with the blogging, because this is really the point, the biggest reservation a lot of times with law firms that feel like they should be doing it, but they can't find the time, and time is everything when we talk to lawyers, of course. So there are plenty of opportunities to have a continuous content strategy. So a lot of times you can ask lawyers in their circles if they have reliable contractors. So go out to your circles, like some people that that have a website, and you look on their blog and you're like, hey, this guy's blogging every day or every other day. This law firm is doing it very consistently. Kind of find out what they're doing if they're within your circle, and you can ask them. From our standpoint, what works a lot of times is you can go to somewhere like Upwork that has contractors and freelancers. And being that Upwork has so many people that write content, they do creative writing, copywriting, hundreds, if not thousands of people in the United States. There are a lot of people that specialize. So you will find someone that's on there that says, yeah, I write specifically for law firms, and you can get their samples, and they look like a great fit. That might work out for you. If you want to kind of do a one-off thing, there's platforms like TextBroker where you can defer some of the content. A lot of these people might not be specialized in legal. They might kind of just rewrite from other legal websites, but they'll write it to a degree of complete uniqueness, so it won't be plagiarized or anything like that. It's certainly pretty cheap. You can get an article for anywhere between $10 and $15, even in legal. I just wouldn't necessarily expect the highest quality there. If you're looking for more quality and you're willing to spend a little bit more, Verblio does have professionals that really just do this day in, day out, really for legal. There's actually some agencies in the legal space that outsource all their content to Verblio, so you kind of know what that standard is. And in that case, you might spend maybe $80 to $100 for an article, but you can expect it not to require a lot of editing and back and forth because, again, time is extremely important. And then as far as maybe someone on your team, you can have an intern, paralegal, people like that on your team can certainly help write content or at least paraphrase it. And then one thing I didn't really mention here is that actually transcription. That's like one of the easiest ways, the most time-effective ways to produce a lot of content is when you go back and you take our advice and you start doing a bunch of videos, and then maybe you do some webinars like this and you do podcasts and all that. Use rev.com, transcribe it, do a little bit of editing, and before you know it, you have a ton of content just from transcription process.
Very good point. So if you can't see the importance of blogs, or if it doesn't fit into your 80-20 rule, you need to make it fit. This is super important. That's why we've had, I guess, 3 slides on this topic. It's essential for keeping your website fresh with new ongoing content that's going to keep you showing up in the search results for high traffic keywords that you are trying to target. And of course, if you're showing up in the search results at the top, that means you have more visibility, you're going to get more traffic. So if you're also worried that maybe you don't have a blog on the website, if you have a website right now, it's probably WordPress or any website that's really up to the times. You must have a blog on there. You might just not have a link to it on your website. It might not be added to the menu, but it's there on the back end. So that's an easy fix. Or it might be called something else, just like James said earlier. It might be called news or media, whatever the case may be. So just make it work, fit it into your strategy. It's important.
Make it work. That's the takeaway.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I mean, you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands, of visitors. It just the benefits are pretty substantial.
Definitely.
It's the state of links and building authority. Take it away, Ryan and James.
Okay, here we go. So Ryan wanted this whole slide, but he's been talking for so long. So I said, hey, take the first 3, and then you could chime in, Ryan. Anyway, the state of links and building authority. We had to give Ryan a breather, right? So
Yes.
agencies put the burden on law firms for link building, often without a process. Taking a more genuine and selfless approach to link building can benefit you more in the long run. So you say, how do we do this? We're talking about several points here, as you note, you can see on the slide. Citations, directories, low-hanging fruit. So I'll start with citations. Citations, name, address, contact information. This is all the great information that's out there on the web in many different places. You probably don't even know half of the places where your law firm is listed. And in some cases, if you've moved suite numbers or moved offices to a different city or different street or even elsewhere, your name, address, contact information might be wrong. It might be wrong from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Hopefully not, but it could be wrong, and you need to double check that, and you got to find that information out because people are researching you and finding you in places that you probably are not there anymore. So we definitely want to clean that up. And right now, the benefit of this is that with COVID, you have to be able to be visible. A lot of people are at home. A lot of people are doing all this stuff. So you want to be able to get listed elsewhere too. Directory, talking about here. And you guys want to chime in on the citations, Ryan or Joanne?
Yeah, I was going to say with citations, it's not only important because when people are looking for you, you need to make sure you have the right information. But if your name, address, and phone number is not consistent among your listings online, Google is going to ding you for it. It's going to be a red flag and your website rankings are going to suffer. So it's important for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah, and I will say one thing too is that it's very common for law firms to opt to use Yext because they get that big scary report that has a bunch of X's and says absolutely everything is incorrect. But it's a little bit of a scare tactic, and we know that from experience. You don't have to feel like you have to be handcuffed to Yext indefinitely, because I really don't like the ethics personally, but I also don't think the approach is right for you to pay $400, $600 a year to Yext to basically continually renew your citations. There are alternatives. There's Whitespark, there's Bright Local, and Moz Local. Those are all three where if you don't continuously pay, like they're not going to just like kick you off and your citations are going to revert to being incorrect. Like there are alternatives out there that are better Yext. I said it here, it's recorded. That's where I stand, but just from experience. And then as far as directories, yeah, there's plenty out there. You have your Justia, Nolo, lawyers, and 120 others. A lot of times you don't have to pay for the directory to be on it. You can do the free version and you can just build like a basic profile, basic information, get a backlink, and that might be good enough, for your firm.
Yeah, there's a lot of tons of free listings out there for directories to kind of be listed in. And then there's some others that kind of update your information for a very low monthly cost. Like as we mentioned before, you just want to make sure that your information is correct. And problem is some associate might be listed at your law firm in some directory, and now that associate is no longer there and he's elsewhere, and they're getting your business if they're found that way. So it's very important that you have the correct people, the correct law firm, the correct phone number, maybe not a direct line, or if it is a direct line, you want to make sure it goes into your main line and not to somebody else's cell phone or somebody else that maybe no longer working at your firm. So those directories are definitely important. The low-hanging fruit links are also just directories and other listings where you can kind of brand your law firm as much as possible. There's so much information out there, and it's just a matter of making sure it's all correct. And Ryan's going to dig deeper into sponsorships.
Sure. And I'm going to talk about a couple more points. Link building is vast. It's something we could talk about for hours and hours, and kind of have already, but some of the main ones that law firms should be considerate of are for some law firms that are a little bit more engaged with their SEO and visibility. I know that scholarships have been very popular. When I started doing this about, legal marketing specifically about 8 years ago, that was like the huge thing. Everyone needed a scholarship. Everyone needed to donate $1,000 grant to someone that had fit like a very bizarre, very specific criteria. And it really doesn't work as well as it used to. I think that a lot of these EDU websites, of course, EDU links are fantastic, but all these educational websites are very privy to what you're doing, and now they don't really pass along the authority of the links. They might bury it on a page, so it's just really not as effective as it used to be. But of course, if you're going to take that approach with somewhat of an ulterior motive, of course, gain a backlink, you can explore sponsorships, charities, and donations. Those are other places where you can kind of accomplish the same things with a little bit more success. Outreach is pretty popular, not necessarily for for law firms, but it can be, if you have the resources and you have the time and personnel. It's basically the arrangement where, you write an article or a blog on behalf of another website, reaching out to them, thus outreach, and basically saying, I looked at your blog, felt like this piece of content might be a great fit for your blog. Could you possibly add it and link back? Just to put it out there, I wouldn't really recommend it because it is very time consuming, but it is something that people do engage in. Guest blogging is kind of essentially doing the same thing, except in most instances, you just pay for it. So there are content opportunities for places like law.com and abovethelaw.com and your local bar, and then your state bar and all these places. And sometimes, there's an arrangement where it's like, it might sponsor some content. Some instances it might be a couple $100, sometimes it might be a couple thousand. Just depends on the value of the link. But that is how some law firms are participating in link building. And then as far as the future of content contributions and links, a lot of people say content is king. I believe with that to an extent, just because I know that content on a website doesn't really necessarily do anything unless you build authority. Because at the end of the day, these backlinks are building authority to your website. When you build more authority, Google sees you as an authority and then ranks you for your respective keywords. So, your content is not going to get the visibility or really the reach it deserves, I guess, unless you really have a really thorough link building strategy. But as long as you write great content and kind of take the tips that we have, from our previous slides, you will get links naturally over time from just having great content. So I still stand by that.
Yeah, a lot of great benefits to backlinking there and blogging. We haven't talked about blogging on the webinar yet, have we?
Just a little bit. We can revisit it.
We have other information to dig into.
So there's one technical thing I want to go over. I'm not trying to throw out anything that is just like on another plane of existence as far as SEO goes. So this might be really important to kind of, if you're working with IT or webmaster or a consultant or an agency that's kind of helping with your SEO, helping with your website, if there's one takeaway from a technical standpoint I'd pass along, or you can do yourself, it's definitely structured data, because it's just so important to take advantage of the way that you can position your website differently online. So you can see in the bottom left here, you can see a box here where you see the review. That's review schema, structured data. This is what causes that search engine results page to include a result like this, because you're including review schema. Below it, you can see, and you're probably seeing this more often when you're doing searches, searching for anything in particular, searching your competition, you can see that there's FAQs that are starting to appear right alongside the result. That's FAQ schema. So it's just more important than ever to take advantage of this because there's so many new categories that come out. Sometimes they come out, there'll be a new one next month and they remove an old one. Like this is something that schema.org and Google are constantly like messing around with and really trying to, push the evolution of results because it's not always going to be what we look at today. It's not always going to be just ads and maps and organic. They're always looking for ways to switch it up. And this is something that should really be taken advantage of much sooner than later. And there are some older ones that you might have seen. Authorship schema, I don't think has been around for quite some time. We used to have like the little picture of the author right next to the result. That was amazing. Video schema used to include thumbnails, but now, we do reviews. It's extremely important for click-throughs because if you have, your reviews, you have your FAQ, and your position stands out and everyone else's is the same. This is a situation where even if you're ranked like 5th or 6th, someone doing the search is going to go through and see yours just front center, just standing out from the crowd. They're going to go past 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and go to yours on the 6th because it stands out and the click through is extraordinary with structured data. So something to really keep in mind and try to introduce to your website if you aren't doing that already.
All right, voice search. So voice search has become the fastest growing method for online searches today, and the trend is increasing really fast. It's actually projected that voice commands are going to initiate half of all internet searches. So how are voice searches different than traditional searches? Well, traditional searches are just plain texts, and text and keywords. That's all it is. DUI, lawyer. The voice search is based on a question, just like you saw on the previous slide. I think the example was from fighter law. When is it allowed for me to use a firearm in Florida? That's a question-based search. And that's what's really trending right now. And I think we're going to go into how we optimize for voice search and be able to show up in what we call featured snippets, what we saw on the previous slide, and then why it's become so important. Ryan can go ahead and talk about the optimization part.
Sure. So as far as optimizing, structured data is going to be a huge contributing factor to that. How you present your content is also going to be a factor because it's like Joanna was saying, that how people search on voice search is a lot different from traditional searches. Sometimes people do a quick one like DUI lawyer. Sometimes people do it more inquisitively. How do I find a DUI lawyer? Who's the best? But when you do voice search, it's like almost like more conversational. You're asking a question to some sort of device that's going to give you a response. So this is when people start saying, find me the best DUI lawyer in town. Where is? So it's like more contingent on like getting an answer back in just a different format, and optimizing accordingly is going to affect that. So FAQs a lot of times cover that, and a lot of structured data is going to support those kinds of answers. Because when you do a voice search, there's not a whole list that people are going through. It's really just one answer. So to optimize for that is a huge opportunity to be the singular answer to that question that people have.
Great, and I will follow up here. Last but not least, why has voice search become so important? And it's always been important, definitely been important, but now in 2020, it seems to be even more important. During COVID, everybody's now searching on their phones even more so than before. So searches on these mobile devices have exceeded searches from desktops. And Google's working hard to provide the right answers to those using the voice search. So looking to get those answers with the correct and concise information. So this is very important. If you're busy like me, you have a family and you're homeschooling, because kids out in California are not going back to school probably until 2021. So now we're looking at doing a voice search, running down the hallway between work and school and sports. Well, there's no sports right now. But anyway, what we're trying to say is that it's very important to basically have that and be able to get in front of this as much as possible. And we're here to help you, and we try to take a lot of your time up. So I'll throw it back to Joanne here so we can come to a conclusion.
I was going to say one thing. I believe baseball started.
It started, but my kids' league didn't start. I don't know why.
And the little league then started.
Yeah. Professionals will start. Yeah.
Okay.
Yay, we made it. So we know that your business has been affected in one way or another by the COVID pandemic. So we really just wanted to host this webinar to help you in any way that we can share 10 tactics that we know are really going to help you come out stronger on the other side of the pandemic when it finally dies out. We are going to open the floor now to answer any questions that you guys might have burning right now. We do have a couple already in store. So go ahead and feel free to ask your questions. You can enter them into the chat pane and then we'll address them on the webinar.
Yeah. And I just want to say thanks for everyone's time. We had a really great turnout. It's very cool to see everyone kind of join and sticking through the whole thing. It's a lot of information. So like Joanna said, anything whatsoever related to content or links or social, I mean, really anything, feel free.
When we go into questions, we have relationships. I have a lot of relationships. Joanna and Ryan have a lot of relationships. We bring years of experience. So if you need an intake department, you need a call center, you need a live chat company, you need a public relation company, business development company, feel free to reach out to us as well. And we want to get you started from a marketing standpoint and help you with whatever company you're working with as well.
Yeah. And so we know this was a lot of information. We did that purposefully. We made these slides very robust because we want you to be able to just go back to these slides and reference the information, or you could go ahead and listen to the recording of this webinar. We have recorded it and we're going to be sharing it with everyone following this webinar. We'll send out an email with this recording. So let's start with the first question. We have a question that basically says that this person has a blog on their website, but they've never really used it. They put all of their blog content on a industry group blog, which works really well, but they want to start doing it on their own blog. How would they go about it? Like, would that work? Yeah, definitely. You want to add more content to your website. We've discussed the blog is a great mechanism to do that. One thing you just want to keep in mind is that you don't want to copy any of the blogs that you've already written yourself and put on those group blogs. You don't want to copy that and put it on your own website because then you're going to have issues with duplicate content.
Yeah, Google will definitely penalize you for that.
Yeah, Google will penalize you for duplicate content. So if you're going to start writing your own blog, you're going to basically have to just, start fresh, write new content or rewrite the blogs on previous topics that you've done. Just make sure, you're not, duplicating any content there.
Is it? Both great points. And one last thing, because I got to do my own chirping too, of course, is if when you do rewrite it, which I would suggest if you really like the topics and you like writing about it, just to confirm that you rewrote it to the highest degree of uniqueness, use Copyscape afterwards. Just make sure that it doesn't show up as plagiarized from the original.
Mm-hmm. And then also, as far as that, keep in mind that it's not just going to be writing a blog, that you would have done in Word or whatever, and putting it on the website, and then you're good to go. Like, this content needs to be optimized too for it to work fully fledged as far as SEO. Like, you're going to have content on the site that's great for the user experience. It's going to be informational and it's going to help convert leads, but you also want to rank because of this content. That's a huge reason why you're doing it. So you have to make sure that it's optimized. And by optimized, we mean making sure that there's links to, links inside of the content. You want to make sure that there's certain things that Google likes, like mentions as far as, at the bottom of the blog, there's a call to action, 50 years of experience, decades of experience practicing personal injury law in Florida, award-winning, and this kind of thing, licensed, professionally licensed. All of that is going to help boost the effects of your blog.
Or just say you're the best lawyer in the state. No, Bar Association won't like that.
No.
Great points.
Mm-hmm. All right, we'll take any other questions. Feel free to go ahead and enter them into the chat pane and we will address them.
I see another one here. Do you want to read that one?
Let's see. Oh, why don't you go ahead and read it? I have a different box open now.
Okay. So I got a question that this lawyer law firm, we are statewide. How do we handle geographical pages? So yeah, there is a process involved with that. Starting with, so basically how we kind of prefaced it before is that geographical page is areas we serve. So you really start with some sort of hub. So in some situations, we like to create the hub on the website as some sort of / locations. So basically it's your website and then / locations or areas we serve. and then you're going to pretty much pick the cities that you want to write about. And so from there, you'll start writing these pages, and you'll probably start with like metropolitan areas, places that really get like traffic, places you know that you're going to have search volume, and you're basically going to do content kind of the way that you do overview on your homepage. You're going to really do an overview of who you are, what your practice areas are, and it's going to kind of be like the summation of your firm, kind of an overview, but you're going to cater it to the geography. So you're going to start using some of the cities in the language. You're going to start kind of identifying some like landmarks. You're going to kind of try to semantically integrate the geography a little bit more uniquely into the content, but it really doesn't differ too much from a firm overview or a homepage of the website. And that's kind of where we start. Maybe use a little bit of imagery to associate. So the second, like people on the website or on that particular page, they can see, imagery that associates the city, so they know in the right place. You're going to use headings. You're going to use optimization to include the city. And then you're pretty much, once you start really building those out on the hub page, you're going to make sure from the locations or your areas we serve page, you're going to list out all those city pages. And from there, they'll index and you'll see where they land, rankings wise, before you start doing further optimization and link building. James, I know that you probably have a little bit more of your approach, especially if there's virtual offices, of course.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can definitely set it up. Taking California for an example, I've worked in California all my legal marketing career, and I have one law firm in Orange County, and I advertise all over California for them. I had them in San Diego, I had them in Los Angeles, I had them in Santa Barbara, I had them up north with virtual offices. And before, we would just rent a certain space, and we're allowed to get a Google My Business listing there as long as we have a unique suite number. And definitely now with COVID, we could even explore it even more. So we can definitely expand that, and you can definitely take all parts of the states with just a little bit of marketing, a little bit of listings, a little bit of content. The whole idea is that you want to identify it and make sure that that's where you want to be. But definitely something we can do.
All right, I have another question here. How often should I post on social media? So from an organic standpoint, our rule of thumb is pretty much, 3 times a week is a good amount on different platforms. So we like, Facebook, there's LinkedIn, there's Twitter, there's Instagram, and we talked about the different ways you could use each of those platforms. Like for Instagram, that would be great for sharing video content, those informational, educational videos. And then Twitter and Facebook, like Ryan mentioned, was good for like addressing questions and answering questions and, building a community around these types of questions. So that's a great way to do it. And like, you might say, oh man, I don't have time to do 3 posts a week. And then like, how am I going to get these posts done? What's it going to be about? So you can find social media topics kind of the same way that you find topics for blogs. And what's great about social media is you can actually drive more traffic to your blogs from social media. So you're sharing links to the blogs that you write on your Facebook profile, on your Twitter, on your LinkedIn. So that's really good with our organic social media as well. And then you can also automate it. So that's how we're making it easier on you. You can automate by using certain platforms like Buffer, Hootsuite that allow you to schedule social media posts. So you can say, you can have someone in your firm, someone on the admin team or whatever, take an hour aside and decide what the social media posts are going to be, go in, schedule them in Buffer, and then you're good to go for the next 2 weeks or the next month, however you want to do it. So it's a very efficient way to make sure that you have a constant presence 3 times a week on social media, especially while people are very present on those platforms right now.
Definitely. I mean, I was just going to touch on platforms, and I knew Joanne was going to do it too. So mainly I use Hootsuite when I worked in-house. And yeah, had it all set up for a few different places, and all you need to do is one post, and it's going to go across Twitter, it's going to go Instagram, Facebook, everywhere that you have a platform and that you want that post to go. So definitely good to kind of look into that stuff.
Yeah, and it can be as simple as just sharing a link to your blog and putting a picture with it, or it could be as good as having customized graphics that really are really eye-catching to people, that really show that you are an authority on this subject. Like you've got a lot going on, you've got these customized graphics. So, and that's something that a team can help you out with if you really want to take it up a notch. That's really great as well.
Can help you out here, but just don't overthink it. Just do it, I think, is the part of this webinar. Just get something out there.
we're all about scheduling and automation. So, WordPress is great. Of course, if you do have WordPress, there's plenty of plugins. So you can do anything from, writing eight blogs and then scheduling it out for the entire month. And every single time a blog posts, you do like IFTTT, Zapier, not to get like too technical, but these are things that integrate with your website where you post a blog and every time it does, it triggers this kind of reaction where it'll automatically go to your Twitter, it'll automatically go to Facebook, automatically go to LinkedIn. And you're really just trying to be as hands-off as possible with your marketing, but still getting, a lot of traction, a lot of visibility, but not really taking up a lot of time doing a lot of things manually.
Yeah, it runs on its own once you start the process.
All right, we have another question here. Is it more important to focus on your blog right away, or should you start with the practice area pages and the geo pages that were discussed earlier? What do you think, Ryan? This is your favorite domain.
Short answer is both. It should really be done simultaneously. There's not really like any particular reason, in my opinion, to really like wait to do one over the other, because they kind of are separate things. Your blog is over here continuously adding content for the long tail, while you're building up your practice areas and your pages for the short tail. So ideally, I would encourage people to do both simultaneously. If you have to pick one over the other, if you don't have your main practice area pages and geo pages set up yet, you can start there. But then once it's already in place, because those pages are technically more finite, there's only so many cities, right? There's only so many granular practice areas, except for criminal defense. There's like thousands. But if you had to pick one or the other, like you had a choice, it would be building those pages, then moving on to your blog. But I would strongly encourage anyone that really wants to hit it with their content and get some traction sooner than later. And this is how we do our own strategies. You do both at the same time.
Yeah, so it's a lot of information. We've touched on multiple different topics, but these are all key areas that need to be addressed if you want to be competitive when the economy ramps back up again. A lot of people have cut their budgets right now in certain areas. SEO is not the area to be cutting your budget. It's an area that's going to drive long-term incremental revenue for your firm. So you want to use this time to double down on SEO. Make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row while people are, bailing out. You're going to come out stronger on top if you do these 10 things that we've discussed.
Definitely.
Just one last thought, if that's the last thing we're going to talk about, and there's no further questions, is that we're certainly not anti-paid campaigns. When it makes sense, like the return on investment is certainly there. It's just we know like how much this builds up law firms continuously over time, just building on top of it. And paid campaigns, they definitely have their merits, and a lot of our clients do it. But it just puts you in a situation where the second you stop spending money on it, it's done. Like that funnel is gone. Exactly. So we really believe in sustainability. The quality from organic leads is almost always higher quality. Because there are people that went on your website and they read about you and read about your firm and your results and read your content. That's how they kind of come in. That's kind of their journey. So we just know that SEO is there, else we wouldn't be doing it for all our clients. And it just should be the part of any marketing mix, really, for any law firm that's really has their eye on growth over time.
Exactly. Yeah, SEO is definitely a long-term strategy is the best. Paid definitely helps. And I did this in-house for many years. For immediate results, I do paid. And then after a little bit of time, I would kind of scale back on the paid, because then the SEO would start to kind of kick in, and then we could do other stuff too. So very important.
All right, we'll say it's the last call for any questions that anyone has pertaining to the webinar that we're hosting today. We are so thankful for everyone that has joined us today. It's a lot of information, like we keep on saying, but it's all good stuff. Feel free to go back and reference these slides. They're full of information. We're going to be sending out the recording as well. Yeah, and we're just super stoked about SEO. This is what keeps our law firms thriving, staying on top. Yeah, we'd be happy to have any conversations with anyone separately should they want to take a dive into any of the other topics more. Our contact information is on the current slide above. Of course, we have Ryan Klein. He's one of the managing partners of Market My Market. He's, super qualified on SEO, especially legal. We have myself, I'm the Director of Client Experience, love helping build the firms that I work with. And then we also have James on the webinar. He's our Client Success Manager, knows so much about legal, especially as far as intakes. That's why we wanted to include that, because like Ryan mentioned, we want to get you all these leads, but we need to make sure that you close the leads that you have, so you can close these as well. So super important.
Great. Thank you for your time, everyone.
So yeah, thanks for your time. Our website is marketmymarket.com. Feel free to check the website out. We've got lots of information on there as well. Check out our website portfolio. Yeah, we'd be happy to help. And if you want a Market My Market t-shirt, like the ones that we're wearing, you know, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll see what I can do. I am the Director of Client Experience here, so I've got a whole.
I'm opting towards saying you have to join the team in some capacity, but there's exceptions everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's merch. We got to send merch out to all the webinar attendees.
The shirt's as comfortable as it looks.
It is.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys for joining.
Bye.
Bye.